And we are live here on the Frugal Crafter YouTube channel. I actually ran some tests last night, so this should be smooth, knock on wood. So I'm Lindsay, the Frugal Crafter, here with Sarah.
Hi.
And we're going to paint a loose, fun bouquet of flowers. And I've got two inspirations for this project. The first inspiration was that my printer didn't work today, so I couldn't print out a reference photo to have to look at while I was painting. And the other inspiration was that my Arches watercolor paper, this sheet got a big smudge on it. And I mean, this is pretty precious paper. It's expensive. I don't want to just tear it off the block and throw it away, or use the backside because it's nice and stretched on a block ready to go. So I figured, well, I will do a splashy painting because I'm not really worried about ruining this paper, but I still want to, get some good use out of it.
Bad.
Oh, really? Oh, no. Okay, let me unplug and plug in again here. Okay, we have audio, but I'm just seeing that picture. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, the white balance is off now. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to do this whole thing with the white balance off. I've got 173 people in here. Fantastic. Okay, I need to fix this, and I think I'm going to need to have to dump out of this. So, guys, I will try to come back in the same spot. If I can't, just go to my channel page. Just click on my name underneath this video. Go to my channel page and just watch for upcoming live streams. It's on the page. Just refresh it. And if we don't come back in this spot, then just go right over there. Okay, guys? So sorry about this. Okay, have I popped back? Hopefully in 30 seconds from now, this is going to be right back up on the screen. If the audio is bad, then I will switch to the laptop microphone and not unplug anything. So if you guys are in the chat, if you could let me know what's happening, if we're back. I think we are.
We're back on.
Yay! Thank you. How is the audio? Anybody?
See and hear.
Okay. Cool. Does it sound better? I hope.
People are saying that they can see and hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. Wonderful. Oh, really happy I don't have a sponsor today. Okay. So thank you guys all for joining us. If you have any questions while the broadcast is going on, type the word question in all caps, and then either Sarah will ask me if it's or one of the moderators will help you. Usually the moderators are quicker, but if they're stumped or Sarah happens to catch it right there, then I will help you out with that. And I think that's pretty much it. Did I forget anything?
I think that's it.
Okay, great. So we're going to be using a few colors here. I'm using the Cotman watercolors because I wanted to do a really fun project. I didn't want anyone to feel like they had to go and have really expensive watercolors. And also, a lot of people like to complain about student grade paints, and I just wanted to show you that they can be vibrant. You just shouldn't make excuses for, why. That's just one excuse you shouldn't have of why you shouldn't paint, So this is the Winsor Newton Professional line, this swatch right here. And this swatch here is the Cotman line. And it's a very affordable paint. So for 24 of the professional colors on Amazon, it's like about $110. For 45 pans of the Cotman, it's $55. So you get twice as much, almost twice as much for half the price. And they come in this, the set that I'm using came in this palette, but I think it's a little confusing to have all these colors out while you're painting. So you could either stick them on the palette, the flat palette that comes with it, or I just put it in my little flower palette here just to make it a little easier. And we have Permanent Rose, Cad Yellow Light Hue, and hue just means it doesn't use cadmium, it uses a synthetic replacement. This is Burnt Umber, and I'm using Burnt Umber, but if you're using another brand, you could use your Burnt Sienna if it's not too red. Winsor & Newton, in both their professional and their student grade lines, uses a different pigment for their Burnt Sienna, and it's very orange. We have Hooker's Green, the Hooker's Green Light. You could also use Sap Green. And we have Turquoise, which you could also use Phthalo Blue. And
sound is going staticky again.
okay, I'm going to switch mics here. So let's try that. Okay, we'll both need to speak up quite a bit with this microphone because it's the onboard laptop one, but hopefully people can hear it and let us know if it's crackly or if we have good sound. We'll start sketching, and I'll wait to hear from folks. We're going to start by just sketching on a small vase. I actually want the vase to be quite a bit smaller to the bouquet because I really want this to feel kind of fresh and loose and carefree. So we are going to plant our vase in the middle of our papers, and we usually don't do that. We usually off-center things, but I really want to have room for flowers here. So what I'm doing is making a little mark across, and I'm going to tip my paper because the glare, I have like 5 lights pointing on my area here, so the glare can be kind of intense. And I'm making a line down. So this should kind of look like a telephone pole, okay? Or a tall letter T. And then we're going to make a wider base here. And then I'm going to make a line about 3/4 of an inch on either side of my telephone pole here. And I'm actually going to angle it in a little bit. So I have like kind of a milk bottle type of vase. And then I am going to taper it into that neck, which was like the top of the T that we made. And I'm going to leave it kind of open. So don't draw yours this dark because you don't need it to be that dark, but I just want to make sure that you can see it, okay? Don't worry about it being perfect. Just try to make it somewhat symmetrical. And this is a regular old mechanical pencil with an HB lead in it, so it is kind of dark. Now, we can be pretty fanciful with what we want for flowers. I'm not going to sketch too many on, but I'm going to put a couple like just kind of pom-pom-y shaped flowers. They could be like hydrangeas or rhododendrons or cabbage roses or something like that. I'm going to put 3 of those in there. And I think I might also want something that's kind of a little bit spiky, kind of like a lupin or a lilac. I'm just putting in kind of like a loose shape for that. Then maybe a couple smaller flowers. So I'm doing more than what I had in my example because I want to really fill the space. Are people hearing us okay? Oh, good. I did 2 tests last night, man. Another one of those down there. And then I think I won't sketch in petals. I think I'll sketch those in as we go. So one of the things I like to do to get a nice loose look on my paintings is to actually liberally splash it with water when I begin. And I'm really just getting my juiciest brush. I'm using the Majestics. Oh, another reason I want to use a little bit of a firmer brush when you're using a student grade paint, and if you're beginning, this is also helpful. Use a more of a traditional synthetic brush rather than one that's supposed to act like real fur, because they don't hold so much water. You end up getting more pigment and less water in your mixes, and it ends up making it a nicer experience if you're using beginner colors or student colors. Now I am going to wet the table area just so I end up with a little bit of a kind of a horizon line. Well, it's not a horizon line, it's a table line, but it's going to help divide our paper up a little bit. So I am painting in, trying to paint in a fairly straight line, about a 1/3 of the way up on the paper. And if I tip it, you might be able to see the glare. I've got enough lights in here, I should be able to catch glare, but it don't seem to be. There we go. Maybe you can see that. You can see all the droplets on there. And now we're going to grab some some color. I'm going to start off with that Cad Yellow Pale, actually, and just kind of water it down in my palette. And I think I'm just going to throw a little bit into the background. If it hits some of the puddles, it will kind of smush around a little bit. And I'm on a block, which means it's a pad of paper, but it's sealed on all 4 sides, so I can paint right up to the edge. I don't have to tape it down. But we are getting this pretty wet, so I mean, I don't tape down a small piece like this. I just painted it regular, but you might want to if you're working on a real big piece.
Slide the palette down, the paint down just a little bit. That's cutting off a little bit at the top.
Oh, slide the painting down?
Yeah,
like that?
sorry.
Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. There we go. You can also just kind of work on some of that color as well. Now for the table, I am going to grab a little bit of brown, and I'm just going to mix in this palette. It's got a little green in there. That's all right. I'm going to add a little bit of turquoise to that, and then it's going to get really kind of green. It's kind of pretty though, kind of like a sea, oceany green. And if I want to make that real gray, I could go ahead and add a little bit of magenta, but I'm going to see what that looks like if I add some of that. Kind of like that. And you tip your paper and help it flow. And also, when you tip your paper, you end up looking at it a little bit straighter on if you're working like on a table, and that can help you if you've got like a wobbly line. And I am totally fine with letting the paint kind of flow and letting it drip and go all sorts of places for this picture. And now I know I'm going to do the bottle and some turquoisey colors, so I think I'm going to go ahead and grab some of that. And notice I'm working with a big brush because a big brush is going to keep me looser. Oh, I've got that painting way. You could be painting that, Sarah. You can probably reach it.
Here, I'll just get the top and you get the bottom. Let's see what happens.
That would be a really fun challenge, I think.
And just put a piece of paper in between so you can't see what the other one's doing.
Oh yeah, like when you were little and you took tests in school and they had like the cardboard dividers for like standard.
Or did you ever do like the stories where you'd have like a group of people and someone everyone would write like 2 lines?
Oh
you leave like the last,
yeah.
like, you know, you write a little chunk and you leave the last sentence and then people would finish and then you read the whole story.
Yeah, like a big old painting Mad Lib.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Let us know in the comments if you'd like to see that sometime. All right. Now I have to say that the paper does make a little bit of a difference. I like this paper for practicing, this Aqua Bee. I mentioned it last week, I think. It's very inexpensive. You can get like 50 sheets for $13. This is quite a bit more expensive. You get a block of 15 sheets for about $30, but you can see a lot more of interesting texture and quality in the surface of the paper. So just especially when you're doing a really loose painting, you really notice it. You wouldn't notice it so much on a botanical or something where you're actually putting a lot of work into it, ironically. But when you're doing something like this, you really can see quite a difference. So now I'm going to grab this magenta and I'm just going to kind of dab some into these pom-pom areas. Now it's up to you what kind of flowers you want these to be. Nobody can boss around your painting. By using a big brush, you're not gonna influence it as much as you would with a smaller brush, and I think that's good because you might not even know what kind of flowers these are until you're done. And I think I want some nice purple lupins. That would be pretty. Now I had splashed like with a stiff brush. I splashed on some purple there, and I kind of liked it, but it wasn't exactly what I'm going for. So I'm going to switch to the round brush here. Now there is a set of Majestic brushes that I linked that has your common sizes, which would be a great place to start, so you don't have to spend a lot of money if you don't have any brushes yet. So that would really get you through, you know, mini paintings. And I think then after that, you may consider getting some brushes that are a little bit more absorbent, such as the Mimics, or I've been testing out some other brushes by Royal and Langnickel, which are faux sables, and it's just amazing how well the brush companies are coming up with so many duplications, so you don't have to get, you don't have to get fur brushes if you don't want to. So I did leave a little bit of space when I was putting that yellow in, knowing that I was going to do some purple, because purple glazed over yellow is going to give you kind of some mud. So I was aware of that when I did that.
Mary Shen, what ultramarine brand do you recommend for its transparency, granulation, pigment flow, etc.?
I really like Daniel Smith's French Ultramarine. I
couldn't remember. I knew you had a favorite brand, but I could not remember.
They're all very similar, but I really do like Daniel Smith's. It granulates more. If you prefer less granulation, Schminke granulates less. So I think I want to do some orange flowers in there too. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up an orange. I gotta clean up this little well though, because I had made kind of like a yellow ochre color. Oh, another tip here. If you are like plagued by mud when you're painting, stick to cool colors. All the colors we're using here are cool or neutral. So you end up just, everything stays nice and crisp and clean, because warm colors are the ones that are going to be your muddy culprits, whereas cool colors are, it's very difficult to make neutrals or mud with your cools. So that's why I have the burnt umber in there for neutral.
Carol Shane, what do you think about the Lowell Cornell brand of watercolor paint?
Lowell Cornell does student grade paints, and they're not as good as Cotman, but you know they're not that bad. They're just, you know, very basic. They're best used from the tube. If you squeeze them out into a palette and let them dry, they would crack on you. So if you are going to do that to conserve paints, because you use less if you're working from them dry, put a couple drops of glycerin in them, and stir it in while it's still wet when you put it on your palette, and that will help them like re-wet a little bit better, and it will help them not crack out and fall out of your palette, because when that happens, they all mix together, and then you can't really salvage them. And that's if you have them already. If you don't have them already, I would honestly, there's a lot of inexpensive brands right now that have small little sets that are pans, half pans like this. And if that's the Cotman's is a little on the pricey side, Cotman makes a smaller set for like $12. Prima Marketing, Jane Davenport, Koi, they all have inexpensive pan sets that they're really good for the price. I would, Lucas too, I would choose something that has the pigment numbers on it if you can find it, because then you'll know how light fast your colors are, and you usually just get a little bit better of a brand to paint that way. But that would be my advice. But if you already have them, absolutely go ahead and use them, and just add a little bit of glycerin or honey to them when you are working. I feel like I meant one little something above the table there. I'm not 100% sure. I'm just going to wet some areas. Maybe add a little, maybe mix a little blue into this gray mix, make it a little bit brighter, and maybe put some of that in there. See what happens. I'll flick it in there so it can kind of do its own thing. So this type of painting is really going on instinct. I wonder if I should tip that a little bit. Is that a little brighter when I tip that, Sarah?
Let me get caught up to you.
I'm just wondering if the colors are getting too washed out with all the lights.
They are, I mean, they are kind of light, but
is it better this way? Is it better if I had it tipped? Or is it better flat?
Still waiting to get caught up to
oh, sure.
There's not a huge difference in the color, whether it's tipped or not.
Okay, it's hard to tell on my laptop, because I'm trying to just kind of sneak a peek while I'm doing this, though. So short. Now, when things are wet, some of your brushes will have scrapers on the end, and you can go in and scratch, or you can use a cut-up gift card or credit card. The cut-up gift card or credit card is going to give you more of a finer line, and the beveled edge of a brush is going to give you either a lighter line if you squeegee away the paint, or it's going to give you a thicker, darker line. So it just depends on what you're going for. All right, now I'm going to go in with some foliage colors. I think I'm going to start light, so I'm going to grab some yellow and mix it in with my Hooker's Green Light. I'm not a huge fan of the Winsor Newton Sap Green. Their olive green is a lot like the Sommelier olive green, though, which is really pretty. Their sap green is really, actually their sap green, their Hooker's Green Light looks a lot like sap green from other companies. So just to give you a heads up, I don't like the Winsor Newton Burnt Sienna or sap green that much, but their other colors are pretty good.
Helene Rush Designs. I'm interested in the Daniel Smith Primatech line because of those earthy pigments. What is your experience with them?
I have a couple. Actually, my tip would be buy them in the sticks instead of the tubes, because they're all ready to go in pan form. You can slice off a piece and throw it in your palette, and they're cheaper. They don't charge more for the more expensive pigments in the sticks line as of yet. So that would be my experience. And also, some of the tubes don't re-wet very well because of the mineral-based content. They do have a hard time on some of them re-wetting, but if you buy them on the sticks, I feel like they're a little bit more formulated for re-wetting. They're almost like formulated as a pan. So that would be my advice. And I have the Serpentine Genuine, the Sodalite, and well, I don't think Cobalt Teal is technically a Primatech, but they re-wet really well from the sticks. I know there's also a trial pack, which I've never picked up. I've intended to buy it, but I just haven't gotten around to it. That has 6 of the Primatech colors in small 5ml tubes. You could give a try. That's probably the most economical way to give that line a try. So that's probably what I would do. And I want some chunkier petals, but I think things are too wet for me to do that right now. So I'm going to grab my heat tool and dry this. So if you have any questions while I'm doing that, go ahead. It's a good time for me to take questions.
We're all caught up for the moment.
Oh, nice. I'm glad so many people could tune in. That windstorm knocked out power all over the Northeast.
And lots of people still don't have power.
Yeah. Yeah, we were out for a couple days.
Bev Roberts, why do you call the Aqua Bee practice paper? Is it not as good as Arches?
It's not as good as Arches. I hope I'm not speaking too loud, but I want to make sure I'm heard over this. It's very inexpensive and easy to find, so I don't feel like I have to hoard it. But if I come up with something that I really love, it's 100% cotton and acid-free, so I'm fine to sell it, and it's not a bad quality. It doesn't have as much sizing as Arches, and Arches is the paper I prefer. I also like the Langton Prestige. Those are my top 2 papers. But because it's so affordable, but the quality is good, that's my practice. It's totally fine for finished work. I just like a heavier sizing on my paper. And everybody has their own favorites. The Aqua Bee is a lot more like the Fabriano Artistico. If you enjoy that paper, the Aqua Bee is a very affordable dupe, I'd say. It's a little bit smoother than the Arches as well. I do like a little more texture on my paper.
Mary Shen, do you support the CYM color mixing theory?
Oh, totally. You're going to get a way better mix from CYM than any other 3 primaries. However, my favorite color mixing theory is using a warm and a cool version of every primary, because you get a little bit more depth and better color. CYM, which is cyan, which is like a turquoisey blue, which is pretty much like what we have for our primaries here, magenta and yellow. Those are very transparent colors, which is great for bright mixing, but you lose a lot of the quality of watercolor with the granulation and things like that if you only see CYM mixing. So that would be the only caveat, would just be that you lose some of the beauty of the qualities of the other pigments. Okay, so now I'm thinking that I actually might like roses instead of another type of flower. So I'm going to just kind of go in, and I'm just going to put some little...
And just a side note, CYM is also typically used as the color theory for like design and printmaking.
Oh yeah?
And RGB is for visual video. That's typically how
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like so when you're doing printmaking, any type of printmaking or printing, they go by CYM colors, not RGB. Which is why when you have like something in hand, like in person, the colors don't always match what they show on your computer or TV screen. Because they're just that much different.
Yeah, because I've noticed that like on like if I'm editing photos, it will say convert to working space. Yeah, because it was like a CYMK instead of an RGB. So what I like to do if I'm doing a rose in a loose format like this is I'll just kind of I might put some in a little bit with some color, and then I'll put some in with just water, just basically wiggly curved strokes. And then I like to actually drop in some color. So if I do some magenta, you'll see it kind of spread around and make the petals. And I can do a little bit of yellow. It'll mix and mingle a bit. And it looks like a nice wide petal there because of how my stuff bled out into the background. So I'm going to take advantage of that. Put another one there. I can't even blame my brush for this. This is clearly my hair in the paint. It's like about 1.5 feet long. So I can't say that's a brush.
Definitely not mine. Different color, different like. Joe Macy, Those are the Royal Sabletech brushes. Yes, how are they?
This one's an espresso. I really like it, and I did just try a Sabletech, and they're really good too. So yeah, I'm really enjoying them. I haven't used them a heck of a lot, but I'm giving them a workout. So I'm reserving opinions completely, like complete opinions at this point, but so far so good. So far I really like them. Now, if you wanted to, you could sprinkle salt in some of these really wet areas and get some neat effects too. I feel like those two are too pointy, those other pearls there, so I'm kind of trying to reel them in a little bit. This is one of those things I wanted to get good at October, just kind of going for my own imagination a little bit more, but I got a little derailed during the month, and Inktober, I think I stopped around day 6. I did not have a very good track record, and then I did like a random one here or there or something. So you can use different, use the tip of the brush for fine little lines, or press it down more for more detailed lines. Just make sure you leave some of the light colors to show through, so you get that, you get those petals. And I think I'll do that over here, and it looks like I've almost got some petals kind of from the side there, so I like that. I think I'll just wet what I think is a petal that it was made from the bloom. So you can use your blooms when you're working like this. You are going to get blooms, and you want to use them as your design elements, kind of let them shape your painting a little bit.
Mary Shen, do the cotton pans lift well from the pans, not the paper?
Both. But I will tell you what I did before I started painting was I took a little water dropper, put a little drop of water on it, let it sit for like a minute, and then I started painting, and they came right off. And I could do a lifting example here for you as how they lift from the paper. There, that's another reason I like them for beginners, because if you make a mistake, like look at these, like even purple, it lifts almost back to the paper. It does it even under cyan colors, phthalo cyan colors, they lift right up. So they're nice for that. I use them actually for illustration often, because I know I can lift them up if I make a mistake or if a client needs an edit. So they're not bad paints. People do crap all over them though quite a bit, so it kind of like ticks me off. Party pooper, paint party pooper. Be positive.
But it's so much harder to be positive. It's easier to crap on things.
No, isn't it? And I'll go back and look at my videos like an hour after I post it, and like, yes, only 2 thumbs down, awesome. I'm always like shocked when there's no thumbs down. Like, oh, did this get out? Google must not be showing this video to people because I have no thumbs down yet.
Memory Rushwall, is it better to paint in bright daylight when painting watercolors? I'm used to acrylics.
I think it's just important to have good lighting with whatever you're using. I don't paint in any daylight because I work in the basement, but I have daylight lamps. So I would say just make sure that you're seeing, color corrected bulbs. It's gonna, if you have them, it's going to make it easier on your eyes. And I think I'll do this one here with just water painting, and then I'll drop in my color. So what I'm doing is almost making a spiral, but instead of making it perfect, I am wiggling my brush and having some thicker lines as I get further out. And then I'll drop in some color and see what happens. There's also this like misconception that student grade paints won't flow. They don't flow as much as artist grade because they do have some fillers. You can't expect the exact same amount of pigment to be in student grade paint as an artist grade paint, but as long as you know what you're working with, you can adjust for those things and not suffer poor paintings because of them. And the thing I like about Cotman's is that or the student lines from pretty much any major art supply maker is that they use the same pigments as they do in or a lot of the same pigments, not like the cadmiums or cobalts, the really expensive ones, but they use a lot of the same pigments, and they're going to have decent light fast ratings. Now, because they are a little bit like more diluted, they won't be quite as light fast as some of them anyway, as the artist counterpart, but it's a lot better than you know, a no name or like a kid's grade. So don't be afraid to use them. Don't feel like, you know, you shouldn't even bother if you can't afford, you know, $150 set of 12 artist paints. You know, just paint. I'm adding a little magenta to these little kind of like little bachelor buttons. They're just kind of spiky little flowers that I put in there.
Vicky Biggs 1, how do you decide where to shade?
Well, with a still life, your lighting can be diffused and coming from overhead and several sources. So I will look at things that are overlapping other things and shade kind of the thing that's being the thing that's being underlapped, the thing underneath the overlapping object. I don't know. That's kind of how I go about it. It's a lot of just kind of, I won't say trial and error, but it's a lot of experience. Like here with these lupins, I'm kind of just putting a darker little comma stroke at the bottom of the little segment so that I have like almost a little bit of a 3D effect, because it would be darker on the bottom of those little petals. And if you had a little, you had some kind of spray out of the original flower, you can add more, or you can use a little shading to give it a little bit more depth. And I want to take a little bit of yellow, mix it with a smidgen of some green, and a little ends up there. They always have some little green at the end. I'll work on the bottle while I let this dry. And I want to put some stems in there. I'm going to use the burnt umber here. And my brush, barely a grip on my brush. I'm just kind of letting it dangle in my hand here. And I haven't really given a water line to the space. I think I'll make it there, so I'll press my brush more and kind of make a distorted stem at that point. Anything going down I want to be kind of thicker, and then I'll put thinner stems up above, so when I put my water line in, it will make some sense. Take a little turquoise and that burnt umber and give a little bit of shadow at the bottom of the base. I do want to preserve some little slices of white though, just for when I highlight. You can always go back in with a bleed-proof white or a white gel pen if you want to, but it's kind of nice with a loose thing because it has such a beautiful freshness to it if you don't have to go in there, and you can let the sparkle of the paper be your lights. And knock some of that paint off. I'm becoming a really big believer in these ceramic flower palettes. I like only having a few colors out, and I really like mixing on the ceramic. Nothing beads up, and it's just I don't know. I like the feeling of it. So I'm kind of adding this water line in. It's that turquoise. It's actually that color I was just using, the turquoise brown mix, but really watery. And I'm just kind of adding in a little hint of the water line, but going around that nice bright white sparkle that I have, because I think that's pretty.
Mary Shen, what do you think of the Mozart watercolors?
I've used them just a tiny bit. They did send me some. They're a good deal. Honestly, for the tin and the full pans they send you, even if you threw the paint away, that would be a good deal for that many tins, that many pans in the tin. They're not as strong as like Cotman's or like Gansai Tambay, but they do remind me of the Gansai Tambay a little bit, being more of an Eastern color. I used them in my art journal, and they did well in the art journal paper because they're a little bit more gel-like when you're using them. They have a very kind of creamy consistency, like an Eastern paint. I think that's what they're probably best suited for. So if you do a lot of art journaling, or you watercolor on cardstock maybe for stamping or something like that, I think you would find them to be very useful. And they do a nice color selection. But honestly have not used them that much, and I've kind of got them in my mixed media box that has been a little neglected lately. But so far that's my impression. They're not very expensive. I think they're about $20 for the set of 48 colors, and there are some fluorescents and whatnot. So I would use them in art journaling. I don't think I would get the flow that I like on this paper, but then again, I can't say for sure because I haven't really used them that much. And they have a couple sets. They have a set that's in a skinnier watercolor set. And I'm talking about the one that's in the Japanese ones, not the ones that are in the skinnier box. So I'm just wetting a little area there. I'm going to put a little bit of color up there on the table, just a little bit of burnt umber. If it gets a little of that turquoise in it, that's fine. I just want to get a little something darker up there. I'm going to tip it to help it flow. I really like the Mozart markers that I used, with watercolor pens.
Ms. Thrifty50, what's the best advice anyone has given you that you feel has helped you the most on your artistic journey?
Oh, well, let me think on that. Boy,
that's a good question.
That's a really good question. Boy, I'm usually the one doling out advice, not taking. I probably should take more advice. Let me think on that one. Oh gosh, probably something from Mrs. Turner, my childhood art teacher. Let's see. I would say learn how to mix colors. Oh, here it is. Learn how to draw before you paint. Which, I mean, that's hard to say to an adult. I mean, that was kind of the law of the land when I was learning how to paint. She wouldn't take me on as a pupil unless she took me. She's like, I will teach you to draw. I'll not teach you how to paint until you know how to draw. So that would be probably the best advice. I was really young. But yeah, probably that. And don't assume that you are unqualified to do something because you don't have a degree. So, I mean, that has definitely, there's been a lot of opportunities that I would have missed out on if I just thought, well, I can't do that because I can go to art school. Don't assume that. And don't assume that if you do go to art school that's how to make it as an artist, because for all the professional artists I know, very few of them went to art school. I'm going to make some little rose petals here. And I'm just going to kind of put my big flat brush down and just kind of twist it. I was going to do a different kind of petal, but I'm like, wait a minute, I have roses. I should do a rose petal. Just kind of twist it. And then if you need to add more pigment, you can drop it in. If anybody has any art advice to share in the chat, please do.
We've got a lot of our regs. They probably have some good advice.
Oh, here's another one from Mrs. Turner that I repeat a lot. Take care of your brushes because they'll last your lifetime. Watercolor brushes. Here's a watercolor instructor. And it is true. I have the first brushes I ever got from Mrs. Turner's class when I was 7 years old when I started watercolor painting. Bought it very stationary in a Waterville, Maine. And they still, to this day, are in my paint box and in perfect condition. Look at this here. So do something so, I mean, it's not the same for like acrylic brushes. You do have to replace those, but watercolors and oil brushes, to an extent, you can
really stretch out their life.
Yeah. Well, acrylic is just so harmful to brushes. I feel like I need some sort of green that's not quite that dark, so I'm gonna mix some up here. And when you're working from a pan of color, because like if I dip it, like I just dipped into that yellow because I didn't want to just rinse off all that good paint I had on my brush. When you're working with like a cake of dry color like that, you don't ruin the whole thing of color if you dip into the wrong color without cleaning your brush, which is something that would be likely to happen with your with a loose watercolor that hadn't dried out yet. So it's another good reason to work from dry paint. And these lupins, they have like little skinny petals, so I'm just kind of fudging some of those in there. I feel like I need that extra texture, and I want to spatter on some of this color because things are getting a little tight there. Might need a different brush for that. Oh, no, this is going to work. And I'm going to give a little bit of that into my base because glass will reflect all the colors that are in the picture. Okay, and I want to have a little bit more shadow on the ground. Oh, I just realized my microphone is like really close to my water bucket, so probably people feel like they're getting splashed with water.
No one said anything, so
well, that's good.
If they do, they don't mind.
Like the York Peppermint Patty commercials. I feel the wind whipping through my hair. I feel Lindsay's water splashing me. I don't think they don't do good commercials like that anymore.
They don't.
Like Grey Poupon. I mean, there used to be commercials that like you just, you know, you could drive up to somebody and say, pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon? And everyone would laugh.
Everyone knew what you were talking about.
Yeah. I'm going to drag that color out a little bit, and I'm going to add a little bit of burnt umber to it because it is a little bold for a. Actually, I think I'll blot some of that off even because once that dries, it's going to stain the paper. Now we'll go back in with some water and then some burnt umber. Add that closer to the bottle where it has kind of the the stems in there, kind of casting some shadows. And I'm also going to grab some of that that turquoise color and grab a little bit of Hooker's green and a little bit of burnt umber and some shading on these underlapping flowers like we talked about before, where it's get the petals overlapping. We're putting that right at the base of those leaves, and if the leaf is wet, it'll just kind of drag in there and be good.
Bev Roberts, have you ever bought a roll of arches? It seems like a good value, but how would you handle a bulky item like that, and wouldn't it want to roll up on you?
I haven't for that exact same reason. I buy it in 22 by 30 inch sheets, but I rarely ever paint that big nowadays. So I just tear it. I buy it. I grab a few sheets out of my underbed storage, and I'll tear it up. And actually, often I'll buy a pad. If there's good deals on the pads and it's cheaper than getting them in the sheets, then I just go for the pad because it's so much more convenient for the way I work. You know, I got to turn this big horrendous blob into a bunch of smaller leaves because that got out of hand. That escalated quickly.
Out of control.
Very out of control. That's a risk you take with loose watercolor, but
again, because it's loose.
Yeah, who cares? So I'll let that dry, and I'll go in and put some shading in to break those apart a little bit. And I'm going to go back to the magenta here and maybe find some darks. I think I'll grab a little bit of that purple that was made with the turquoise and the magenta. Just going to darken it up a little bit so I can make some of those really stand out. And I think there's a little bit of that over here too, because I just have to be careful. Any place where I have yellow, if I get like a pure purple on top, it's going to make mud, and I don't want mud in flowers. So that's why you usually don't shade with the opposite color or make a mix for a shadow with an opposite color on florals or fruit, because it does get really dark and muddy really easily. I mix that magenta into that green, it's going to get real muddy. Because red and green are opposite on the color wheel. And maybe just with some pure magenta defining a little bit more over here. The key, I think, with the loose painting is to just define some and let your imagination fill in the rest. And if you go completely off the rails, you can always grab some white gouache and recover some areas, or scrub and lift. I like the delicate lines on top of the really bushy background. I think I want a little magenta in that base too. It would be pretty. A little reflection in there. Oh, it's coming along. I can't really tell what it looks like until I look at the computer screen, and then it's like, oh, okay. So last week on our live stream, I went to edit off the first 5 minutes where we were troubleshooting some technical problems, which seems to be the way I roll, and then it completely messed up the resolution on the entire live stream, and I'm working with Google technical support to get that corrected. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but I'm trying to get it back to what it was anyway. So I might just leave this when the stream goes up as is and not try to chop off the first few minutes of issues. So if you go back to the replay, you might want to skip ahead. I'm just too afraid to edit anything now right in YouTube. And that's what happened there if you tuned in for the replay and noticed that it was kind of blurry. We're just about wrapping up here, actually. I don't think I have too much to do. I like that layer, actually. Maybe I'll put another little type of flower in there. Think of a small flower that would be dark enough to cover there, Sarah. You know your flowers, don't you?
Sometimes. Small one.
Yeah, something tiny.
I don't know, just little spatula buttons.
Yeah, you could do those in blue, right?
They're like little round. They come in a bunch of different colors. But spatula buttons are little.
All right, let me dry that. If anybody has any questions or suggestions, go ahead and put them in chat while I dry this area. Now, if I went ahead and painted on that area without it being dry, those colors would just feather out on the edges, and it could be quite muddy as it mixed with the paint that was already there. So that's why I'm drying it. Soften that edge before it dries there on that one. I have to go through. Sometimes I'll soften an edge if I feel like it's too hard and leave some edges crisp, just to get that little variation that looks nice.
Mary shows, do you have any tips to help loosen up? I love the look, but I can't seem to paint loose.
Well, if you go back to the beginning when we started painting, one of the things I did was I splashed water from a big paintbrush. So I just flicked on gobs of water. So then when you started to paint, even if you're trying to paint tightly, the paint's going to whoosh out in unexpected areas, and it's going to give you that looser look. Also, starting off with painting wet into wet, that's where you wet your entire paper and then start painting on it. That loosens up because you don't have any hard edges to begin with. Everything will just be very soft and fluid. The paint is only going to go where the paper's wet. So, you know, anytime you have a wet area, or you could paint it all in clear water and then drop the paint into it and let it just kind of flood out into the areas you've pre-wet. I think that area is dry enough. I don't have to worry about this because I'm not going to be painting next to it. And I think I'll just do the turquoise on its own then, see what that does for bachelor buttons. I can remember, I think they're kind of like little, kind of spiky little flowers. My sister grows them.
Mary Shen, what's your favorite style? Loose, realistic, etc.
I don't know. It depends. Like for personally for painting, I probably like to look at loose paintings more than realistic paintings. Like as my preference as far as viewing them. But painting, I don't know. I mean, I jump around. I think a lot of times I like painting in a realistic style just because, you know, you can work on it for a while, and like I could leave a painting in like part done and come back and finish it, and I already have something going, And I find it easy to get into painting if I have something I'm already working on, just kind of, you know, it just helps me start. And it is nice to see something kind of resemble something else if you've been working on it for a long time, like a botanical. But I also really like to work in a loose style. So I don't know. I guess it just would depend on the day for me.
What's the mood?
What's the mood?
What's the energy level?
Right. And I don't like painting abstract just because I don't like what I come up with, and it doesn't feel as enjoyable to me. But I like looking at other people's abstract paintings, so. This was such a dark brown that I made for the centers there that I am going in and finding some other places to use it because it does seem a little out of place. I think I'll put a little bit on the paper here and then fade it out with a clean brush. There, I think this looks better for a shadow, I think. And I think I might just try cutting a dab. Yellows generally are a little more opaque than other colors. So I'll try dropping in some yellow on the center of those flowers and seeing if I can lighten them up a little bit. I'm going to dab some of that center color off. So paper towels work better for me than rags for lifting. They seem to be more absorbent, which you wouldn't think they would be because they're paper and not cloth, but you can also use a Q-tip if you need to lift up out of a tiny area. All right, and let me try some yellow on top of that. Another tip I would give would be for watercolors, buy brushes that have plastic handles, because if you leave them in the water overnight, they will not split and crack. Or just remember not to leave your brushes in the water overnight. Easier said than done. Okay, well, I like the little blue flowers in there, I think. Well, I think this might be done. What do you think, Sarah?
I think so. I think if you keep adding stuff, it's going to look not so loose anymore. It's going to look cluttered.
Yeah, I think so. I actually think I like this painting that we did live better than the sample one. And sometimes I like my sample ones better, but I feel like this almost feels like too tight. And this, I feel like I was really kind of, once we got over our technical difficulties, I was really feeling loose and really, really enjoyed painting this. So I hope you give it a try. And try not to be too perfect when you do it. Just try to, you know, fling some paint and have a good time. And if you're worried about wasting your good supplies, grab, you know, a $2 paint set from, you know, Walmart and just fling that paint and have fun. Prang is a really good paint. It's very transparent. If you're at like Staples, I don't know if Walmart has it, but like Staples would.
I think Walmart.
Walmart. Any of your big craft stores would have it too. And it's like maybe $3. A set of 8 or 16 or something.
I avoided Walmart at all costs this week. The power being
oh my goodness!
No,
yes.
I'm not.
Yep.
No.
Yep. And this is the set. I'll just show you because it is such a good deal for all those colors. A great Christmas present for somebody starting out in watercolor too, because it would take a while to use them up. And the colors that are the most popular, they actually give you 2 of. They, of course, they give you an extra white and black, which I'm not impressed with, but they give you an extra crimson, ultramarine blue, and yellow ochre. So those are actually really handy. In fact, I'm going to take my extras. I never opened them up, but I think I'm going to stick them in my new Jane Davenport palette because they can be useful in there. And I can fit down the middle of the sections of your Prima or Jane Davenport palettes, which is handy. The other 12 metal tins, they put the rails closer together and they don't fit, but that's kind of nice about those. Any more questions before we sign off today?
We're all caught up.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for sticking in through the early technical difficulties. I do appreciate it. And till next time, happy crafting.